Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Tommy's Tonewoods. Like a game show host introduction. Today is a very special episode. It is a bumper edition of Tommy's Tonewoods with a very special guest. That's right, we'll come on to that in a second. But today we are looking at a lovely new package from one of my favorite suppliers over in Spain. It's Maderas Barber. They have sent me something really quite interesting. And this is going to interest the luthiers a lot, I think. They have sent me a selection of their new MB Sounds acoustically rated Tonewoods. I am really excited to get into these and to show you what I have here. So if you've been following along for a little while, if you've seen Tommy's Tonewoods before, you will know that in each episode I give a little rundown of the characteristics of the pieces of wood that I'm talking about. Things like density, I'll talk about janker hardness. But of course, wood is far more complex than that, and there is lots more information to dive into. What Maderas Barber are doing with their acoustically rated woods is they're providing luthiers with some really useful data. Things like density, stiffness or the Young's modulus, frequency response of their soundboards, the sustain and damping or Q factor, and the acoustic radiation coefficient. Really useful bits of information if you are a bit of a geek when it comes to your wood choices, as we all should be. We're all wood geeks and we're all trying to build better guitars. So in this video, I was inspired once again by the work of educator, author, master luthier, Giuliano Nicoletti. He has been working with Maderas Barber to help them acoustically grade their soundboards. I was lucky enough recently to have a chat to Giuliano, and here's what he had to say about the MB Sounds acoustically rated soundboard.
We know that different type of guitars needs different type of tone wood in order to get the best result in that specific field. And by knowing this specification, and of course you have to have an idea about how to use this data, you can really profit of the best piece for your project. If you are building a fingerstyle guitar, you want a light tone wood, very responsive, in order to be able really to reproduce the finest nuances of sound. If you are building a flamenco style guitar, you will look for a wood that has a little bit more damping because you are looking for attack and separation between notes. If you are building a guitar that will be used mostly on stage or in situation where you use a preamplified output, then maybe why not to choose a wood that has damping and density also to reduce feedback, to have a more solid instrument.
So I think the key takeaway for me with the MB Sounds materials is having that data, to be able to build this kind of library in your head of what it is that you like about specific pieces of wood to facilitate the guitars that you want to build. It's about getting that continuity, that consistency between builds, and you can start to understand whether you like a more dense top, whether you like a less dense top, how important stiffness is to you. All right, so let's get into some of these soundboards because they are really pretty special. So we'll start off with just an absolutely ridiculous set of Western Red Cedar. I think this set is about 30 years old. Thuja plicanta. I'm sure I've absolutely butchered the scientific name, but this is fantastic. This is a native to America. It is very important in Native American culture. It's known as the Tree of Life. It's said that there are tales of Native American peoples gaining strength just by standing with their backs to these amazing trees. Immensely durable, really rot resistant, not that your guitars are ever going to be outside and subject to rot, but you'll see this a lot used in exterior furniture, but fantastic tone wood. And one of the things I love about cedar, if you've ever worked with Western Red Cedar, is the smell, the aroma that comes off it is just fantastic. This is an absolutely magnificent set. I'll give it a little listen. Just glorious. Woo! Spoiler alert, I think this might be my favorite top from this set of 4 tops. So Giuliano had some interesting things to say about this particular top and why aged woods have a slightly different character to fresh sawn or freshly produced lumber.
That cedar is very interesting.
What do you find interesting about it?
What is really unique on the TPC system is the measurement of damping.
Okay.
And if you compare the results of standard cedar with the result of cedar 30 years old, it is really the damping that is changing a lot. Not the stiffness, not density, but really the damping. It's really the resonance that you also can hear when you tap.
Let's give this a little blast with the, no longer the magic spray, it's the magic bottle. And you can see, just holding this up to my monitor here, beautiful, even colour, super tight grain, absolutely magnificent. I haven't worked with cedar a whole bunch, but this is a pretty special top. All right, so we'll move on to my favourite species of topwood, Picea ibis, that's right, European spruce. Now we have two different tops here. One is labelled alpine spruce, one is labelled European spruce. So it begs the question, what is the difference? And it basically comes down to region. This is our alpine spruce top. Lucas at Maderas Barber tells me that this comes from Eastern Austria. What they've called their European spruce is from the Carpathians. I think this comes from Romania. So same species, grown in different regions, and obviously under different climatic conditions, different nutrient levels in the soils, presumably different elevations depending on where on the mountain it grew. So just instantly looking at these two soundboards, the alpine spruce is very, very clear, really even, super tight, straight grained. The Carpathian spruce, or what they've labeled the European spruce, is slightly paler. The grain lines are slightly further apart, but we've got some amazing silking. These two tops being the same species, this is where the acoustic information becomes really useful, because you can take two soundboards of essentially the same species and compare and contrast their properties. So for example, the Carpathian spruce has a density of 404 kilograms per meter cubed. The alpine spruce is a little bit more dense, 442 kilograms per meters cubed. Frequency, this has a slightly higher tap tone, it's worth noting. We've got the sustain or the Q factor, the Carpathian spruce 149 compared to the alpine spruce, which is 164. So I'm gonna do a little test here. Let's see if I can discern a noticeable difference in the sustain of these two plates. You can hear a difference. You can feel a difference as well, which is cool. So when I was talking to Giuliano, he was showing me the software that they use to calculate the sustain, the Q factor, and it was really interesting being able to see the waveforms of the sustain. We'll have a look at that now.
This is the main interface of the software. You have a recorded signal. In this case, I tapped 2 times because, just to double check. And you can select, in fact, the impulse. Now you see in the first window the impulse that we recorded. In this second window, you can see the spectrum of the signal. And the first peak, the higher peak, is the resonance that it is interesting for us. It's the main longitudinal mode. So we can select specifically this mode. And you see in the third window, we have the decay of just this specific frequency range. This is the decay of that specific resonance, filtered from everything else. So we can select the central part, the central portion of this decay, and now we can calculate here the parameters. Of course, there is a zone where we insert the dimensions of the samples and the weights. So we have the density immediately calculated. We have the nodal lines. So these are the points where the rubber bands have to sustain the sample, and all of the parameter that comes from the analysis of these two windows. And so we have the Q factor, which is the damping. Young modulus is the stiffness, and the radiation coefficients, that it is telling you, in fact, how this specific sample is able to transfer mechanical energy into acoustic energy.
We'll give a little, give these guys a little dribble with the magic bottle. We've got to come up with a new name for the magic bottle. But you can see slight colour differentiation. I absolutely love European spruce, the kind of subtle pinks in there. Yeah, just creamy white, absolutely beautiful. I use it a lot, love it. Yeah, fantastic, fantastic wood. And finally, let's move on to another interesting and slightly trendy material right now. This is Torrefied Adirondack spruce, Picea rubens. And if you have worked with any torrefied woods, you will know that similar to cedar, you get a wash of aromatic goodness whenever you open the box. This, to me, always smells like freshly baked cookies. It is absolutely glorious, and that aroma lingers in the workshop whenever you're using sanders or anything like this. So Adirondack spruce is an interesting one, and there are quite a few common misconceptions about Adirondack spruce. One being that it has a wider growth ring spacing. Adirondack spruce that we see today comes from, in quite a lot of cases, third growth forests. That means when you have a forest that's been cut and replanted and cut and replanted. Adirondack spruce that we see today has wider growth rings as a function of the conditions in which it was grown. Sometimes plantation or forests where it's not had to compete for light. In what we call old growth forests, you will see trees with much, much tighter growth rings because they've been putting all their energy in going up to the light, to the top of the canopy, as opposed to growing out the way. The Martin Company switched from using Adirondack on their guitars in the mid-40s. Adirondack spruce was used a lot during the war effort. It was used in things like airframes, in construction. And so a lot of those old growth forests where trees were kind of crammed together and very, very tall and slender, those trees were gone. It takes a long time for those kind of forests to regenerate. If you look at the grain on those pre-war Martins with the Adirondack tops, they're much, much tighter than some of the Adirondack spruce that you see today. This is actually a really nice example of Adirondack spruce. It's not super wide grained, it's nice and tight. It does kind of spread out towards the lower bout there, but still very, very straight, nice and tight. And the torrefication process they bake the woods in the absence of oxygen, I think in like a vacuum kiln. And the idea is that it crystallizes all the internal resins in the wood with an idea of trying to mimic the sound or accelerate the process of tonal aging, if you like, with the wood, so that if you're going to use a torrefied top, it's going to sound more like your kind of pre-war Adirondack soundboards. Whether or not that is true, I don't know. I haven't built with it a whole lot, but what you will notice, I've always found, is that torrefied tops always feel a load less dense. And super, super stiff with a very light, low density as well. So yeah, beautiful wood, beautiful kind of caramel color. And, very, very, very pretty. Lovely, pronounced grain on there. Yeah, really, really nice. And we'll give this a little listen as well. Spraying magic spray everywhere. Fantastic. Woo. Wow, holy moly. That has got a real chimey ring to it. Magnificent. So we're all trying to build better guitars. Data is king. In my opinion. The more data you have about the materials that you are using, it all aids towards building a more consistent instrument, aids in your understanding of your preferences, why the guitars are the way that they are, and what your preferences are. So each piece of wood, each top comes with this super, super handy little guide. It's got everything in there, your density, your stiffness measured in gigapascals, who knows what a gigapascal is. It's got the frequency, it has the sustain or the Q factor, and it has the acoustic radiation coefficient with the serial number on there as well, and a QR code if you want to know more. So I'm really impressed by this array of tops. I love the data that goes along with it. Get yourself a copy of Giuliano's book. I know that he does workshops. I think his next workshop at Maderas Barber is actually sold out. So maybe, I'm sure they'll be running it again because they're very popular. So go check these out. Get yourself a copy of Giuliano's book. If you like these videos, please subscribe and follow. Let us know which woods you want us to have a look at in the future. And if there's anything I missed, anything I completely bastardized or fluffed up in this video, which I'm sure I did because, you know, science isn't my strong point. But let me know in the comments. Let me know if you've built with this wood and what you thought about it. And let me know if there's any of these that you would like to see us build with here at Tom Sands Guitars. So that's it for us for now. Thanks to Maderas Barber, thanks to Giuliano, and thanks to you for watching as well. Take care.